So during the Cultural Revolution, for example, my dad's side of the family, because they were still in China mostly, we lost everything: gold, jade, jewelry, silver, real estate, stocks, bonds, physical cash. Everything got confiscated pretty much.
Wow.
So if they had Bitcoin, they could have done what my friends from China have done, which is come to the US, like my current friends, come to the US with almost their entire net worth in Bitcoin, because Bitcoin is what? Digital bearer asset, meaning it is extremely hard to censor, extremely hard to confiscate, and super portable.
Hey everybody, this is the High Hash Rate Podcast. I'm Mike.
And I'm Dan.
And this podcast is just two plebs getting high and talking about Bitcoin, life, and the absurdity of the fiat world. Our guests don't necessarily get high with us, and you don't have to either.
But it helps.
All right, here we are. We're now recording. So which means that everything changes.
Yeah, Mike's freaking out. He's too high.
Show.
So as always, welcome to High Hash Rate. Today we've got our first Ivy League grad on the show. We've made it. We're serious. We got Terrence Yang, the managing director of what's your title now? Managing director of Swan Private of
Swan Global Wealth.
Swan Global Wealth. There we go.
Well, I think we should let Terrence introduce himself. Terrence, who are you?
I'm a colleague. I'm Terrence
He's
Yang.
a friend.
I'm a friend and colleague. I come in peace. I work at Swan Bitcoin as a managing director and Global Wealth, which is a new group we formed to help serve our private clients and ultra high net worth families better with new products. So, yeah.
Nice. I don't want to. This is not what the show's about, so I don't want to like pimp Swan too hard. But can you talk a little bit more about like how this global thing is gonna benefit Bitcoiners?
Yeah, so
non-US Bitcoiners.
We've been trying to tell our audience, our friends, our fans that we're a global company. So I think someone had the idea to put global in the name.
There you go.
So like Swan Global, Swan Wealth Management, or Swan Private Client, we thought Swan Global Wealth would make sense. I didn't come up with it, but I really like the name. And it's consistent with what a lot of TradFi companies do a little bit in terms of how they name themselves. So yeah.
Right. Yeah. Excited. Global Wealth, not available in Texas, New York, and South Dakota. A little asterisk there. Anyways, back into
Terrence, I know you from Swan.
We're working on it.
As this sort of force that spreads around the room and just lubricates the entire room socially. This is how I know you. This is sort of what I wanted to get into tonight.
Terrence is the KY jelly of
oh my God.
Of Swan, the social scene. Everybody loves Terrence.
No, I'm not. Yeah. Okay. That's fine. Not sure about the KY jelly reference, but yeah.
Astroglide.
Oh my God. Okay.
I definitely want to hit that subject, but I suppose we might want to talk a little bit about how you got into Bitcoin first.
Sure. So how I should have gotten into Bitcoin was summer 2012. I'm at Y Combinator Demo Day. We're in the front row because I traveled with some angel investors from LA. So I saw every company, including Coinbase, up close and personal. It was a ridiculous day because I think they had like 85 companies pitching in 92 seconds each or something. And I had no memory of Coinbase or Bitcoin at all, even though I was in the front row and we're all taking notes. And I've gone back through the list a couple of times, and I remember every other company that pitched except Coinbase. So that was summer 2012, whiffed on that, had a chance to invest in Coinbase as an AngelList kind of syndicate investors as a small angel. And I think it was Funders Club.
So you definitely have this investing background.
Yeah, a little bit angel investing background. Yes. And then in 2014, late 2013, early 2014, I started reading about Bitcoin and I was like, oh my God, I can't believe I missed Coinbase and I really need to get into this. This seems to make sense. Didn't understand it at all. I was one of those blockchain, not Bitcoin people. And therefore, when I invested in uh, Bitcoin startups, not Bitcoin itself, partly because holding Bitcoin seemed like it would be very difficult. I probably would have just gone with Mt. Gox, to be honest, and lost all my money there.
You might be
But
getting it back in a month.
Sorry.
You might be getting it back in a month.
We'll see. They've been saying that forever.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, invested in Bitcoin startups and then didn't get into real Bitcoin until 2018. So it took me a long time to remedy my mistake. I think I was
what got you over that sort of
background
threshold?
was too traditional and too fiat. Sorry, what?
Wait, I was just asking what got you over that threshold? Like, how did you make that leap?
Oh, I'm trying to think. Cash App helped, but also like I used to listen to and sometimes have discussions with Bitcoin maximalists or Bitcoin developers that I meet in San Francisco or whatever, and started seeing the light because they had really, really good arguments.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, if you had gotten in as an angel in Coinbase in what 2011, 2012, that would have been a pretty awesome return, right?
Yes.
And I think I've heard stories. I think there was like a lot of famous like hip hop stars and athletes who actually got in and were early investors in Coinbase. Yeah. But even though the investment opportunity and the returns would have been fucking great from 2012, depending on what round you got in. Would it have beaten the same amount of investment into just pure Bitcoin at the time, or would it have been close?
Yeah, that's a good question. I don't know. I did invest a small amount into Coinbase later because they had some allocation. It was just a small amount because I kind of changed my mind. I was like, this valuation seems ridiculous. And I don't really like Coinbase anyways. There's something off about them. But at the time I didn't know better. And I just was like, okay, well, it's too late. I already invested a little bit. But
it's a good name too. If nothing else, it's a good name.
It is a good name. Yeah.
So before you were getting into angel investing and just kind of investing in startups, what was your career, early on?
So I started off as a big law firm lawyer, and then I worked on Wall Street as in-house counsel and also in structured finance and kind of on the business side as a deal manager on new regulated, complicated products. Yeah, anything that had legal regulatory stuff, there was a good chance me or someone like me would be involved in making sure what we were doing made sense. We made the investors sign documents saying they understood. We worked with our risk managers and credit people and kind of business, like the sales manager and the trading manager, to make sure that they thought what we were doing was okay, because they were more long-term players generally. So they were more responsible for risk and revenue, not just revenue.
So I don't want to age you here, but was this during like the tech revolution, the internet age,
definitely
like
wanted
when Wall Street and trading, all that stuff was starting to like really change?
Yeah, I was involved. Let's just say one of the products I worked on, not to date me, but to date me, was a product that I was pretty proud of that enabled you to go short CDOs and kind of mortgage-backed securities for the first time, because before it was long only, and we came up with a product that the traders wanted where we could short, and we had a big fight with the investment bankers because they were gonna they knew what we were doing. They knew that once we had a efficient way to go short, that the market would be very price efficient. It was no longer long only, and their days were numbered. And I felt like that product by itself popped the bubble a couple years before it would have popped, because the party could have continued a couple years longer, and that could have put us into a global economic depression. Could have.
Wow. Yeah, that's what was life like working on Wall Street? working in big law, like in New York City?
So,
Like what
okay,
was,
so big
did you have
law,
much free time?
sometimes, but sometimes it's feast or famine. So big law, if you're involved in an M&A deal, as I was sometimes, you could be working like 100-hour weeks, several weeks in a row.
Wow.
And this is New York City you're working in?
Yes, in
Wall Street.
Manhattan.
You're a big law firm lawyer in New York City, in the city. One of these
You're right,
dudes that
Manhattan.
walks up into one of these tall ass buildings and goes into work and looks down and sees like New York City, right?
Look down on my computer. I didn't look down at the people.
No, I didn't mean like looking
the whole
down
time.
like that. I just meant like you're high
Yeah,
up,
we were in
obviously.
high rises. Yes. Yeah.
And how long did you do that?
Yeah,
Sorry?
how long were you doing that?
Big law firm, I only did it like three to 4 years, because what happened was I was sent to work on the trading floor at one of these banks, and I was like, wow, this seems more fun. So I was but I just started this new job at the second law firm I was at, and I was like trying to figure out a way to get out and go back to the trading floor, because it was a lot of fun. And I did that after I stayed at the second firm a couple of years, because you didn't want, at the time, I didn't think it was a good idea to just kind of leave immediately from the law firm that I joined.
Right.
What do you think about practicing law?
I think it's
like, are you warm to it, or are you
something
cold to it,
to do if you want more options. So what everybody does after law school. It's almost like, not quite after medical school, you do these internships or residency, but it's almost like that to go to big law firm, because it just opens up a lot of opportunities so that you could work on the business side, you could work in-house in good jobs. So you kind of have to do the big law firm thing. So I kind of just accepted it. I try to accept reality instead of being like, oh, I don't want to work at big law firms, I'm not going to do that, and be the exception to the rule.
Right.
I didn't like my odds doing that. So I just kind of did it. And I didn't like it as much as I thought I might. So that I wasn't like, you know what, I'm not going to try to be a partner. The hours seem ridiculous. And yeah.
Right. And so, and I'm sure Harvard Law opened a lot of doors open for you as well. What was that experience like? Like,
Harvard Law.
It seems like
it was
one of the hardest.
This is like shit you see in movies, right? The Harvard Law,
right.
Like,
yeah. So it's not like in the movies. I'll tell you. So it used to be at one point, and then I think they got sued, or people complained, or maybe dropped out, had mental problems, and it was just no longer the culture to yell at people and call on people like what used to happen. So but by the time I got there, it still kind of sucked in some ways, because it was a bit harsh, the environment. But I'm glad I did it. And being an alum is a lot of fun. So when you go to alumni events, like, the only people who show up at alumni events are, they're either retired or semi-retired, or they're just happy alums. So the people who tend to show up at alumni events tend to be very happy. So being an alum was great. Going to law school was okay. I think people would have had more fun going to Yale.
Why do you say that?
Just because the Yale students seemed happier.
Yeah.
And Stanford.
So not only is law school culture changed, when I was going through boot camp in the Air Force, the drill instructors had to would stop and apologize after they cussed at us, and they said they weren't allowed to do that anymore, and they were told that they had to go easier on us. So I can only imagine it's gotten easier since then.
Yeah,
that was like 2005, 2006. So
what happens when your military goes soft, man? What happens?
Well, apparently it's the law schools that start. It's like the canary in the coal mine, when they stop picking on kids in class and making them answer the question.
This also happened in my industry as well, in filmmaking. The sort of doctrine that was being brought into the schools started changing. You could see how it would change into a different doctrine, because of
like less critical,
exactly, like less, a more inclusive sort of, like,
that's why Netflix sucks.
I don't know. I just like binge.
No, I can see that. I can totally see that.
A bunch of Netflix documentaries. Netflix.
Any good ones?
This MH370 was kind of good. I mean,
is that about the plane?
And then the Murdoch murders. Wow, that was
I got to catch up on that.
That was pretty fun.
Is MH370 about the plane in Malaysia?
Yes.
Okay, that's a crazy story, but that's way off track.
The sound design for this piece, the sound design deserves some award, but everything else is,
just okay. So you mentioned these alumni events, right? So what do your colleagues and people you went to law school with and the people you started off at Big Law or on Wall Street, what do they think about the fact that you're this crazy orange-pilled guy who's just on Twitter all day, replying to memes and like
number one,
doing outreach. You're on, you're on
Twitter
Clubhouse, you're on Spaces, you're on everything.
You still speak with these people?
You're out there.
Sorry?
You still speak with these sort of New York?
Yeah. Okay. So what happened was because I had an in with the sort of alumni relations people, the people who don't do the fundraising but do like the reunions and stuff. They made me reunion chair for like a couple, or asked me to be reunion chair. First they asked me to raise money and I was like, I don't want to do that because my brother's like, if you do that, you're gonna have to top up, or they're gonna expect you to top up. So if you're like short, they're short, you set this goal, we're gonna raise X amount and you're short $40,000, it's gonna be like, would you like to make up the difference because we're still short? And I was like, oh, I don't want to do that. So then it's like, well, you could also be just reunion chair. So I did that. So a lot of my classmates knew me or just knew of me. So when I would post things on like LinkedIn or whatever, Facebook, they would notice, and some of them would reach out. So it was really good because people would reach out and we become friends, even folks that I wasn't that close to during law school. They felt like they knew me a little bit. So I was trusted by the law school, so they could trust me.
And so it actually worked. You were connecting with people over this stuff. It wasn't just like, oh, Terrence went off the deep end. He's into Bitcoin stuff.
No. This was just some of them. But it's not like
sure.
convinced them to buy Bitcoin for the most part.
Right.
So they're pretty. Lawyers are set in their ways a little bit, and they're very
conservative by nature.
They benefit a lot from the current system.
Oh, for sure.
So it's very, for them to.
What's
Go ahead. I was going to ask, how often do you find yourself in a position where you're orange pilling someone? Like, are you talking to more Bitcoiners or like non?
Oh, okay, yeah.
When you're not talking to clients, I guess.
So when I'm not talking to clients, I'm often planting the seeds to orange pill them. Okay. They usually don't know enough to orange pill because,
so that's so you've got a strategy, like a long-term strategy, right? Like you got a lot of Bitcoiners who are just trying to get everything into a 5-minute conversation. They're like using all this jargon, all this stuff, orange pills, hard money, this, like the hardest money.
Having the 30-second pitch helps.
Yeah, right.
But they have to hear it a few times.
Yes, of course, right? Like
sometimes I give people Bitcoin because I want to accelerate the process, but that's usually like friends and family or people I just like a lot. But other times it's if you think you're gonna see them again, you kind of plant the seeds. So you want to kind of figure out, at least what I do is I try to figure out what they're most concerned about in terms of economics or just what priorities they have, and see if Bitcoin I can explain it in a certain way.
Right. That's smart. Yeah.
Like if they
listen to what they want, what they care about.
Bingo. Yeah. Bitcoin meets a lot of unmet needs for people, but not all of them, because some people just don't feel like they have a lot of problems. They're pretty happy. So you just maybe you dig a little bit, then you just talk about something else.
Not everybody's trying to fill like a huge void.
Yeah.
Right.
Or some people are just they're just not ready. Yeah. It just takes too much of a shift in their thinking. But you can plant the seeds. Like you could say, like, I think a lot of people realize there's something wrong with all the money printing and things don't make sense, and the Democrats and Republicans are always fighting and increasing spending and increasing authoritarianism, and
recently trying to increase taxes.
Increase taxes, yeah. for example, I was at a Christmas party with fiat folks, but including it was hosted by an advisor from a top sort of RIA, and she was interested in Bitcoin, but the other people were not, so I didn't really bring it up because we're at a Christmas party. And I remember talking to the head of a regulatory agency, not like the top, but she was like a 3-letter agency, sort of the regional head. And her and her husband were there, and they're kind of fiat type people. And we started talking about what I do, and they're like, "Oh, why do you like Bitcoin?" And I was like, "Well, because blah 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 blah." And I felt comfortable with them. They were very good listeners. They're very interested, and so I started talking about digital surveillance. And the look on their face was like, "Oh, okay, maybe I shouldn't have brought that up. I should have saved that for maybe a second or third conversation if I ran into them again." Because they were like, "What are you talking?"
I found
But I kind of it's a mistake in some ways, but I also kind of liked it because I kind of I like that they were surprised that I would say something so think
like,
about
whoa.
government, because they're kind of working for the government, or the wife was.
And you just kind of dropped in their presence. I think it's funny that you said it. I mean,
Even though their agency doesn't do like surveillance, it's just like consumer protection stuff.
Sure. But it's still like they're kind of like
they were a little
colleagues. They're colleagues. The people that they work with are adjacent to that at least. If it's funny that obviously outside of these 3-letter agency employees, when I talk to higher net worth individuals, that you kind of plan. I usually go the angle of you could move this anywhere overseas. There's not KYC. There's all this stuff that if you've got a ton of money, like one of the major global investors, right, was talking the other day, he can't get his money out of China. Like the Chinese government's like putting all these restrictions. He's trying to withdraw and sell stuff from banks and move it out of, there's capital controls. And there's a lot of capital controls, even in the United States, in the form of financial penalties. And you start talking in that language, and those people usually, like you said, you plant the seed. Sometimes it takes, like, what, it took you 6 years to finally really take the pill. It's like, it's going to take some people some time, but if you either plant the seed or you water that seedling that's already been planted by somebody else, you just keep it going, just keep the process going. Don't let it get too stale. Just kind of keep bringing it up in their mind, and they'll eventually start seeing these little angles of like, oh, this really could benefit me, and this could benefit, like, I have a lot of Jewish friends, and they're concern about like getting money out and having to leave a country or having to leave where they're at. Even in the United States, it's like, I gotta go, and I don't want to like leave all my money behind. And I'm sure, Mike, you can speak maybe to some of those concerns, but it's like, that's a really, that's experience that a lot of like my friends, that's how I've approached it with them.
Are you saying because of my Hebrew background?
Yeah. I mean, your life experience.
I haven't ever had that kind of experience before, really, of discrimination so much.
Well, that's good. That's what you want to hear, I guess.
But I am an American as well. It tends to happen a lot less, maybe. You mentioned this one term that I wanted to go back to. It was you said fiat folk. I thought it was such a nice little term. You're at this party with these fiat folks, and I'm wondering, like, are you feeling like you're like the only little, person in the room, and you sort of have to defend yourself, or is it the opposite way?
No. So I didn't feel like I had to defend myself. People just ask what you do, and then some people are interested, right? Because this RIA, like a lot of RIAs, they get asked about Bitcoin, especially in 2021, less so last year. But she wanted to be able to refer her clients to potentially us. She just wanted to learn about it. We even did a follow-up one-on-one call. So hoping that'll happen soon. But
send her to Swan Advisor.
So some of them, exactly. No, I told them about Swan Advisor and Andy and Ryan. But some of them are not interested, and some of them are kind of crypto, not Bitcoin or Bitcoin and crypto type people. So
Yeah.
it just depends on the audience. What that party was very funny though, because there was a woman who did compliance for some shitcoin company. I forgot what it was, or some shitcoin. And we were talking, and I was very I felt
outspoken about your passion
firm
for
a little bit. Yeah, yeah, with the regulator folks, because I wanted them to go after, because I was like, yeah, you can look up my boss or me, but we are very ethical, and there's a lot of scams in crypto, and you guys should do something about it. I was literally like being like, you guys should do something about this and that and that. The woman from the shitcoin company, who I was, kind of nice. I was like, oh yeah, I used to shitcoin, or not shitcoin, but I used to do that stuff. Now I just do Bitcoin, blah blah blah. I just like it better. I didn't get into like kind of shitting on what she did, but it was like, oh yeah, you must be in high demand now, because Christmas there are already all these investigations. But anyway, she pretty quickly left our group as I went on my nice but firm tirade about how this regulator should have her office go after these crypto companies that were all scams and ripping off US retail.
Did she unfollow you on LinkedIn the next day?
We had just met that night, and I don't think we ever connected on LinkedIn. But
oh,
yeah,
okay.
I'm
yeah,
sure if I show up, she would pass on. And
so how far away do you think you are from getting Harvard to open their Bitcoin and the Bitcoin portion of their endowment fund with
it'll take a while, but one thing I do, because these institutions, they're very sensitive to PR and image, and they're horrible at social media, especially Twitter. They just don't get it. So I frequently tag when I'm shit posting um, Harvard Law. I think they have a blockchain. It's so embarrassing. And the Stanford Crypto Club, like I tag their student groups and talk about like how Sam Bankman-Fried's Stanford law professors are an embarrassment, and I can't believe they took money. They took a Bahamian mansion from their corrupt son. It's ridiculous, and they should return it, or whatever I do. But yeah, I frequently, not infrequently rag on them. I'm sure someone there notices.
Oh, for sure. I'm sure they
But
do.
yeah, but I kind of stopped trying to be, or being a reunion chair, because the longer you do it, as you get older, they're expecting more and more donations. So
Yeah,
it's like,
they never enough.
yeah.
You know, to shift topics a little bit from kind of your background, as of right now, Silvergate just went under today. The regulators are cutting, or banks are cutting off Bitcoin companies, crypto companies left and right from the financial system. They're debanking these companies. There was a Senate hearing yesterday about mining and the climate. It just seems like there is a and the other thing was GB Grayscale had their opening arguments against the SEC yesterday, and from what I've read from analysts, from legal analysts, it sounds like the judge and was not really impressed with the SEC's reasons for denying the ETF. But they also was reports that the SEC would not deny or would not say they wouldn't pull the futures ETF if they lost this case, in order to prevent having to approve the Bitcoin ETF by GBTC or by Grayscale or anybody else for that matter. So it seems like there's like this focused effort and attack, especially in the wake of FTX, to kind of crack down. And I think our listeners might be some of them might be a little concerned, like, oh, is the price going to crash, or is this going to be made illegal? Yada, yada, yada. You've got the expertise in this, policy and law and financial stuff. Is there anything that you would like to say that would maybe ease or that might concern the listeners about what's going on and what the implications might be?
Yeah. So first, in terms of whether it's Swan's ability to do business or the client's ability to buy Bitcoin from us or wherever they buy Bitcoin from, there's thousands of banks in the United States. Many are small, local banks, community banks, or banks with just not very many branches, or they are credit unions. And those banks are the ones that you want to have accounts at, maybe more than one account, just to be safe if you're really worried. You're better off having sort of two accounts, one at a credit union, one at a community bank. At these smaller institutions, two bank accounts at small institutions, than five bank accounts at like the big five of JP Morgan, Citi, Wells Fargo, Bank American, whatever else is big. So you would be better off doing that, number one. And then number two, like if you're thinking about Swan, we're doing the same thing, right? So we have multiple bank accounts, and often they're with reputable credit unions and community banks that have been around a long time that might just want to work with a Bitcoin only company that does not do a lot of these scams and ridiculous leverage and shitcoins and all that stuff. Like there's just no way that anything we're doing is an unregistered security, unlike all these crypto casinos that are offering unregistered securities, except for Bitcoin and maybe some of the stable coins that are, people are not expecting a profit. Maybe those are not securities, but that's about it.
But what do you think about this? I've read that like the stable coins themselves are backed by like money market type funds or treasuries, other securities. So if it's backed by a security, is that a case for it being a security itself?
Not really. So you can make that argument. I think the point there is they are backed by maybe commercial paper or short-term investments that are cash-like. They're supposed to be. If they're backed by like more security stuff, that's not as good. But the point remains that outside of like Terra Luna, whichever one was the algorithmic stablecoin,
right?
These other stablecoins that are US dollar backed, the popular ones like Tether, USDC, you're really buying it as a surrogate for a digital dollar, and you're not really expecting to make a profit off of it. If you are, it's like 1 basis point over a week or something.
Kind of like for instant clearance and trades and things like that. You're not waiting.
Yeah. It's really for people that might not be able to access US dollars, or it's just the way the trading pairs work on that exchange. It's US dollar, Tether, US dollar. So, sorry, not Bitcoin versus Tether, Bitcoin versus USDC, as opposed to quoting in US dollars. Or it's being used in the global South. They'll use stable coins because if you think about it, they need it for medium of exchange. They get paid. They want to get paid in something that's US dollar denominated or based, and then they're going to spend it the next day or next week. They're not looking at it for long-term store value.
Yeah.
And they're also not expecting a profit off of it. They just want to store like short-term store value.
And so you mentioned some of these smaller banks, which is great, and having multiple banks. And you also mentioned earlier briefly Cash App. And so I just wanted to say about Cash App that if you don't use it, a lot of people, especially people in my circles, they use Venmo. They send everything back and forth with Venmo. I try to get them on Bitcoin stuff, but like they don't care. But if you do care, using Cash App, so you can, it's a bank account, so you can get a cash card. You can have a direct deposit into your account on Cash App because it's a bank account. You can use your cash card from that account on your Cash App as a debit card. You can use it at the ATM. You can pull money. You can use Cash App for Lightning, free transactions. You can buy Bitcoin. You can buy stocks on there. So you can move all your money around to pretty much anything you would want to buy. You can spend it with anywhere. You can scan a QR code. You can send it back and forth to your friends, and you can use a traditional like debit card. So that's another option as well. So if that makes sense for you, that's worth checking out. They're not a sponsor. I just think Cash App's great. The other question I was going to ask is, what about so they've proposed a new capital gains tax that's effectively going to double the capital gains tax if it passes. I don't know if it's going to pass. It's probably not likely, but it's a possibility. They've also introduced a law to make it so you can't tax loss harvest Bitcoin essentially.
I just saw this.
They're right up. Yeah.
So what
those
are
the
what yeah.
I don't yeah.
What are those?
Mm-hmm.
How do those affect, your average pleb who might be listening, who might have some
Sure.
like when it comes to selling, spending,
yeah.
harvesting.
So that and the other stuff we talked about before, the the court case with GBTC and the closure or unwinding of Silvergate and so forth, all those can cause short-term kind of bear market or lack of upward price momentum, or kills any upward price momentum, or can curtail it. However, as a pleb, I would say that you want to kind of just focus on the fundamentals, build conviction, HODL, dollar cost average, buy dips, and also recognize that the market might trade down irrationally if people think that are scared by these bills, double the capital gains tax, eliminating tax loss harvesting. They're realistically not going to pass because we have a split Congress, and they tried this before when Congress was less split. When actually I think Biden had a majority control of the House, Senate, and Senate, but like Senator Manchin and others would block it, these more conservative or moderate Democrats. And now that the Republicans control the House, and McCarthy had to make a lot of concessions to people that were more conservative, like the more conservative wing, anti-spending wing, we're more likely to honestly have like a debt ceiling crisis where there's a technical default on US debt than to have either of those two pieces of legislation pass, or really any significant legislation that is going to make Republicans look like they're in favor of tax increases. I think this is kind of signaling by the Biden administration to kind of rally their core base, right? And just be like, oh, well, we tried to tax businesses, tax the rich, but these stupid Republicans won't do it because they don't care about poor and middle class people. And the Republicans are like, we're not raising taxes. The Democrats are tax and spend. So it kind of serves both sides, but it's definitely presented as by the Biden people, I think, to try to favor them and present themselves more favorable light, I feel.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's political posturing. I think they're just trying to put stuff out that makes them look tough, makes them look, super progressive.
But if you are worried, you should just, I mean, if you are underwater on your Bitcoin, it's a good time to tax loss harvest. Just use this as an excuse to prioritize that and get it done. Because if Bitcoin drops even more from, like, let's say you bought at 60, it's at whatever, 22 now. If it drops another X $1,000, you can always tax loss harvest again. So this is a one-day benefit. If Bitcoin goes back up to wherever your cost basis was, 60,000, then you can't tax loss harvest anymore. So you miss your chance. So you may as well do it now if you're lock in that tax benefit, and you can do it again later if you want.
So if you're not like a Swan private client, or you don't have like an RIA somewhere, and you're looking to tax loss harvest, I mean, if it's a super complicated ordeal, I guess you can just help maybe pass somebody some resources. But like, how would somebody go about doing that, and what should they do to make sure that they get that credit?
Well, they should.
Can I ask this question? Sorry, what the fuck is tax loss harvesting?
Oh, sure. Yeah.
But maybe we should start there. Yeah.
So tax loss harvesting is something that's, so not every single law that we have in the US is oppressive and hurts taxpayers. There's some things the government does to hurt you, and then they kind of back away from it, or walk it back, right? So this is one of those walk back things. So let's imagine tax loss harvest. It's best explained through an example, but conceptually, it's just a way to lock in a tax benefit because you're underwater. So you invested, let's say, $100 into Bitcoin, and Bitcoin dropped, the value of your Bitcoin dropped from $100 to $60. So you have $40 of losses, but you haven't sold. So it's unrealized. It's just $40 mark to market paper loss. If you sell it, then you have the actual loss, and it's painful. And as Bitcoiners, what we want to do is have you rebuy that Bitcoin right away. You don't have to rebuy Bitcoin for it to be a tax loss harvest. Tax loss harvest is merely like, I lost money. I'm going to realize that loss. And the reason it's called harvest is you're making it real so you can reduce your taxable income. So yeah, if you make $200 and you have $40 of loss, then maybe your taxable income is only $160, for example.
So, and for somebody who's like, well, I'm never going to sell my Bitcoin, no matter what the price is. But
yeah, so
you can
we're not
just go ahead, right?
So bottom line, yeah, we hear that all the time, and it takes time for clients to understand that you're not selling. So if you start with 10 Bitcoin, let's say, you're going to sell 10 Bitcoin at a loss, generate $40,000 in capital, whatever it is, but you're going to rebuy it through us. We'll buy it back right away. So you still have 10 Bitcoin. It's just 10 different Bitcoin, but Bitcoin's fungible. So who cares, in my opinion, because economically, you start with 10, you end with 10, but you've locked in all these tax losses that you can use to reduce any and all income this year and in all future years. So if you tax loss harvest this year, you can, yes, and it extends
I
forever.
didn't know that part.
So what people don't understand, there is a limit, but it's only for ordinary income. So think about it. Your Bitcoin is a passive investment, right? It's no, you wouldn't think that it could be used to reduce income from your gig, from working. It's, of course, it makes sense to reduce income from selling stocks or real estate or whatever, something passive loss to offset passive income. That makes sense. But what's cool is you can have short-term or long-term capital loss and use it to reduce short-term or long-term capital gains, or a combination. So, and there's no limit on that. And you can do like $1 million a year, whatever.
Yeah, but that's some tricky shit. It's like you got to know a bunch of legalese.
It's a little tricky. Yeah, it's a little tricky. Yeah, so I'll go slow. But people can, contact.
Yeah, I mean, you're welcome
sign
to
up
do
for
the
swan.com and contact us. Just email support@swan.com. If you're my client, you can copy me, or just Dan or Michael vouch for you. Just copy me on the email, and then we'll help you get going. But like Reed and Company, they're really good. Reed, Todd, or Wade, they're exceptional private client service people. So they will answer your questions about this stuff. And if there's anything sort of complicated, they want to double check, they can check with me or John Horr, many others on our team. We just double check with, not that they don't know that stuff. But real quick. So basically, you're limited at up to $3,000 a year for ordinary income. So if you're making like 100,000 a year, you can only reduce your ordinary income to 97,000, not below that. So if you have any left over, let's say you have no income other than from your job, and you're making 100,000 a year, and you have 30,000 capital losses, you can, if you're married filing jointly, you can reduce your 100,000 to 97,000. That's $3,000 less taxable income you pay. So if you're at 1/3 tax bracket, it's $1,000 a year. I've had wealthy people say, well, it's only 1,000 a year. And I'm like, do you want a free iPhone every year? Because that's $1,000. So I don't know about you. I would like a free iPhone every year. So even though it's only $1,000 a year, you can do that for 10 years, right? Of less tax that you pay, because you're saving $3,000 of taxable income. 1/3 tax rate is
I feel like I would need an army of CPAs to execute what you were saying.
It's
all right.
It's really not that hard, man. It's you just you just record it on your form on TurboTax, and it tells you which form to look at, which box to look at, and then you just import it, and it does it for you.
Yeah, we've had great colleagues from our client services team test out Coinly, and they like Coinly.
Okay.
I personally have used Zenledger, but I think Coinly is better because I used Zenledger 2 years ago, or a couple of years ago, when I sold and rebought. So yeah, Coinly is the latest that our team has kind of thoroughly tested. There are other Bitcoin and digital asset tax software that can be good, but yeah, it can really help, especially if you use Strike or something where you're buying every hour and you have all these like 5 million different cost bases. It's ridiculous. So yeah, after the pain that some of my clients have gone through, they have sworn off because they're like, oh my God, this is such a headache. It's like, yes, you did what I did. We were buying every day, we were rage buying and buying all the time at small amounts, but you might want to just slow down and just reset your cost basis, do tax loss harvesting, you have new cost basis with one number for all your Bitcoin. Because even though you bought 10 Bitcoin at different prices, right, small amounts every day, now we sold all 10 and rebought all 10 at the same time. So you have one cost basis, the same number across all 10 Bitcoin. And maybe you just want to buy Bitcoin once a month, right? Dollar cost average once a month instead of doing it hourly and having ridiculous amounts of cost basis to figure out. It's total pain. So yeah.
Yeah. And you mentioned getting a free iPhone every year, but what you also can do is use that $1,000 savings to just buy more Bitcoin, because now you have
that's better.
You have those 10 plus $1,000 worth more. Yeah. So you actually make out with more money when
no,
it's all
that's
said and done.
a much better answer. I was more trying to tell the story about
but no, sure, totally.
And so I was trying to, because to them $1,000 more a year of extra Bitcoin, they don't care. But I was like, but people like free stuff and they like iPhones, so
hell yeah,
I knew how to get them.
Yeah. Before I switch gears, Mike, do you have any more questions on this? Any of this legal stuff or tax loss harvesting?
I mean, not that I can't. I'll just bring up at a later date in time in private. But
yeah, happy to talk to you in private. Yeah, we'll get you set up.
Well, anything that might help our listeners learn a little bit more on how they can save money and work the system.
So
that's why we're here.
How can you study? How can you understand it to
People
that degree?
Do it all the time.
No. I didn't mean do anything illegal. Like it's a totally legal thing.
Taking advantage of the rules that are very clear, and everybody does it. I mean, the IRS said Bitcoin is virtual. Well, Bitcoin is virtual currency the way the IRS defines it, which makes sense. And then they said virtual currency is property. Property is different from securities, so there's no 30-day wash sale rules. It's not like stocks where you have to sell, wait 30 days, and rebuy, and you have all that price risk because
Bitcoin's a stable coin now. So
go up and down.
Yeah,
Bitcoin you can sell immediately, rebuy. Nice. So that's really good.
Yeah,
but yeah, so the basic concept is if you lost money, it's not the end of the world. You can make lemonade out of lemons, and nobody wants to lose money, but maybe sell and rebuy your Bitcoin right away. Use that crystallized loss to reduce your tax. Keep more income, keep the same Bitcoin, keep more income, and pay less tax.
Follow the law and still get more Bitcoin. That's attractive to a lot of people. Yeah. So switching gears a little bit, you are we talked about your past and we talked about kind of what you do, but you're not just an investor in Bitcoin. You're not just somebody who saw a great way to preserve your wealth and just add to your portfolio. You're like us, you're orange pilled. So what is it about this technology, the protocol, anything? What is it about that gets you so geeked up and excited and like makes this like a focus of your life?
Bottom line, it's about freedom. As we increasingly live in a surveillance state, and we've seen both parties in what's supposed to be the greatest country on earth, both parties are very authoritarian, whether it's during COVID or 9/11 or whatever. They've done time and time again. During crisis, real or imagined, they have become extremely authoritarian, and we still have these laws, whether it's when you go to the airport, the TSA, and then Patriot Act and all these money transmitter laws and laws all over the place.
They're monitoring what you check out from the library.
Yes. Yeah. So my story that I like to tell, and it's somewhat analogous or in the ballpark, I would say, as some of our Jewish friends. But my ancestors on both sides of the family, my mom's side and my dad's side of the family, they were on the losing side of the Chinese Civil War.
Oh, wow.
I mean, they lost to the communists. So during the Cultural Revolution, for example, my dad's side of the family, because they were still in China mostly, we lost everything: gold, jade, jewelry, silver, real estate, stocks, bonds, physical cash. Everything got confiscated pretty much.
Wow.
Because you just ransack your home, right? And dig in the backyard and whatever. So if they had Bitcoin, they could have done what my friends from China have done, which is come to the US, like my current friends, come to the US with almost their entire net worth in Bitcoin, because Bitcoin is what? Digital bearer asset, meaning it is extremely hard to censor, extremely hard to confiscate, and super portable. So even though my friend may have come with millions of dollars, imagine coming with millions of dollars of physical cash in a suitcase, or even gold. These gold bars. I saw a video of, I think, gold bars in some oxygen tank that a guy was checking in through TSA and got caught, or some customs. These gold bars or small gold bars were in there. So you cannot move gold or physical cash or physical gold, which are the only two other bearer assets of any real value, in my opinion. You can't move them at scale. And another friend moved from South Africa with almost his family's almost entire net worth from South Africa with his family to the US using Bitcoin. Government couldn't stop them. So you can evade capital controls. People will say, like, oh, like my fiat friends will be like, but that's illegal. It's like, yes. It was also legal to be Jewish during the Holocaust, or to have, gold, or help the Jewish people, escape massacres and homicides, and
it's
and
illegal
being
to have gold
gassed.
in the United States
There's a
during the
lot of laws that
1930s.
are illegal, that are very unjust, right? So
Right.
Just because it's a law, it doesn't mean you're, at some point you have to look out for yourself and your family. So the state is fine, but I'm here for people, not entities or governments or Facebook or Google to help them get rich. I did enough of that crap, helping Wall Street.
Right. Yeah.
I don't need to keep continuing.
Was freedom always that important to you?
Because I've seen how freedom can hurt, whether it's my ancestors, because I grew up hearing these horror stories about communists. So it's kind of naturally just anti-communist. But then I thought about it and I was like, yeah, you know what? My parents are actually right. So having seen freedom be encroached on, whether it's in the US or, like, for example, with Jewish people, when they had Nazi gold and they kept gold at these Swiss banks.
Yeah.
So not your coins, but also not your gold in your safe, not your gold, right? They just had gold to use, and they had to sue for that. So, like, I dated a woman who kind of helped people retrieve Holocaust, Nazi gold and stuff. So I kind of was predisposed to have some empathy. Yeah, her job was just basically helping go to Holocaust victims' families, or Holocaust victims.
Took it from their teeth. Took it up from their fillings.
Took it from
they took everything.
Yeah. So, and I guess, just maybe having someone in my family who is particularly authoritarian and not give us kids a lot of freedom.
So to follow the law to the degree in which you do, it's sort of like a rebellious act in a way.
Yes.
And after working on Wall Street, this is like his redemption arc.
Okay, I will say, on Wall Street, like, at the time, I thought what I was doing was great, because it was like a new, more efficient way to transfer risk, whether it's credit risk or interest rate risk, or a lot of these new financial products, including derivatives. I thought it was great. I was like, this is what people need. They just don't understand it. What I didn't understand, I was a little naive, I guess, was that some of our salespeople were not as scrupulous as the rest of us were, because a lot of the traders and a lot of the product people, they were former engineers, math people, even the salespeople, because it was kind of technical. So they were kind of technical people, Bachelor of Science, Bachelor of Engineering majors. We're all these nerds. We're all these nerds who are building new products that we thought were helpful to people in society, more society, like institutions, but like it would trickle down, and these help people hedge their risks and take positions more efficiently, whether it's a hedge fund or whatever. Like, why do you need to waste so much capital? You're only interested in the price difference between X and Y. So we could sell you that product. But yeah, it was not a moral enterprise, but it was an immoral, and there was some innovation there. And it was a lot of fun with smart people. So
despite the crooks and despite the corruption and like just people who were maybe not as super scrupulous as you would expect, or weren't doing the due diligence that you would trust them to do, the technology and some of the products were really beneficial, and they did advance society because of the value and the innovation that was created using those.
I think so.
Right?
Yeah.
So
if they're used correctly, the problem is people don't understand the leverage. So
right.
And sometimes our salespeople would not be accurate, or they would say accurate things but be misleading and leave out information, which we weren't supposed to do, and I didn't really know about until later. We would literally like explain the deal in pretty plain English in the term sheet, and then we would have them sign investor letters and risk factors that I actually rewrote when I was at Merrill into plain English, because we had so many complaints from our salespeople. Why is there, investor letter, risk factors, why are they 20 pages each? It's like, that was 20 pages before I got here.
Yeah.
Not my problem.
My point is that like some of these innovations, these technologies, these money even itself, it's going to draw people like that. It's going to draw incentivized behavior like that. So, but and you're never going to avoid that completely. So even in Bitcoin, you're going to have like scammers. You're going to have crooks trying to rip you off to take your Bitcoin, right?
To some extent, yes.
Yeah.
For sure.
But the value of Bitcoin is that if you understand the technology, you understand the protocol, the law, quote unquote, of the network, and you do it correctly, you can avoid all of that. You can avoid the leverage, you can avoid the scammers, you can avoid the crooks, you can avoid all that crap. Because ironically, if something's really good, it's going to draw scammers. So it's almost like a sign. Sometimes it's like, but you can avoid those things.
You can avoid or mitigate, or at least like if you are going to use leverage, maybe only use it if you know you have the ability to repay, and you use a modest amount of leverage, like, not something ridiculous.
A small couple $1,000 loan, buy some Bitcoin if you expect it to hit the bull run soon, and then, but only that's something that can't be recalled. You can't get margin called.
Well,
you can just pay it with your income.
Exactly. You don't want to like go crazy and have no income, no asset kind of loan, these ninja loans where you don't have to give any documents, and then you lose your house because
don't lose your house to buy Bitcoin. Don't do that.
I definitely admit to being one of these degen dudes on DeFi, locked in like whatever crazy amount of money I was locked into, and taking loans out every month just to pay rent. This was
you were doing that?
This was a time of my life. Yes, I recall. Obviously, I'm not doing that anymore.
What was that? Was that stressful?
Fuck yeah.
I was like,
when so much of your livelihood depends on the fluctuations of something you don't understand.
Dude, that's like, have you seen Uncut Gems with Adam Sandler? He's just you're just kind of like him, man. You're just fucking. I disagree. The market's going down. I disagree. 3x me up on Aave. Folks, don't be like Mike.
Yeah, I was those were sad days. But hey, I was able to get out of it because of Bitcoin.
That's awesome. Well, Terrence, what do you have leave any parting words or let people know where they can find you to learn more about these complicated schemes that
I definitely want to open it. Did you have anything
Yeah.
you wanted to speak about tonight?
Oh yeah.
Trying to think. So yeah, a little bit. Like I would like people to keep their eye on the long-term vision, which is that we know that governments and companies and wealthy people around the world are increasing their power and they're not going to give it up easily. And they're going to do things like have CBDCs or increase surveillance or increase strict rules during the next crisis. Let's just say it's a real crisis. And you really have to watch out for ways that they encroach on freedom. And Bitcoin is extremely important to make sure that you and your family have financial freedom because it's something that you can pass on and no one can stop you because it is so hard to censor and is so hard to confiscate or take away. And because it's credibly scarce, that combination I think makes it super valuable. It's like digital gold, but better because you can build on top of it. So I don't want to get into like building on top of it. I think that's going to take a long time. But the main point is that with all the talk right now that I see on Bitcoin Twitter and in FinTwit about how the Fed's doing a horrible job, the US is going to implode, all that stuff. You don't need any of that to happen for Bitcoin to be valuable long term. Who knows what will happen like year to year, right? We could have another 2022. I don't think so, but it could happen. And that can go on for uncertain period of time, like go on for years, right? But the point is that decades from now, you really want to have at least some Bitcoin for yourself and your family, because whether or not these people on FinTwit or Bitcoin Twitter are right or wrong about, depression's coming, recession's coming, the Fed's going to print tomorrow, or, but meanwhile, they're raising rates and inflation seems high and job numbers look good. The point is that long term, the Fed and the government, they're very biased to spend money, to increase debt, to do easy money, print more money, and that devalues your savings if you're saving in US dollars and you really want to be in something that's incredibly finite, incredibly censor resistant, incredibly hard to take away.
Oh yeah, we talk about on the show quite a bit.
So
It's
silver,
almost
right? Silver.
Yeah,
yeah,
Silvergate.
we talk about a lot on the show about it's almost the point of the show, right? Is to talk about the value of Bitcoin outside the fiat exchange price. Like you mentioned freedom, flexibility, you can move global, long term, and the community, everything. So even if the price doesn't moon in the next 5 years, there's a whole lot more value there that you won't see if you're only looking at the ticker.
Yes. Yeah.
For sure.
And to that point, if I may, the price is determined in the short run by impatient sellers versus impatient buyers. So if you're hodling, yes, you are reducing the effective circulating supply by taking out of circulation everybody who hodls. But the price action is still the price action. And if there are people who are getting liquidated for you going long, leverage long, or who are very impatient because they're panic selling because they were told by certain people they listened to on Twitter, whatever, that the price would go up and it would be, $10 million by now. That impatience can get to people and then they end up selling, or they just lose their jobs that they can't afford to sell. People who think they have high conviction because they listen to us or Michael Saylor or whoever, but they never really built their conviction at a deeper level by studying and understanding and doing the hard work. There's no substitute for reading these books and essays and watching YouTube videos and thinking critically about it instead of just, having it on in the background when you're driving or whatever. So yeah, you really have to do the work to build that real conviction and understanding. and manage your cash flow, manage your expenses, have a good paying job, try to keep your job so that you have steady income so you're not forced to sell. So there's kind of a couple types of sellers, right? Leverage longs, getting liquidated, speculators, people who think they have conviction, but they don't have the understanding, but also people who have the understanding and conviction. They have everything, except they don't have the cash to withstand like, things that might happen in their lives. They're somewhat foreseeable, pay cuts, increased inflation, things like that. And they end up having to sell because they don't have enough. They're either spending too much or not making enough, or both.
Right on.
Where can we find you, Terrence?
Sure. I'm on Twitter shit posting at TY on Clubhouse. And
are you still on Clubhouse?
I am sometimes, because sometimes I'm driving and I don't feel like listening to an audiobook or whatever music playlists or whatever. I need to improve my playlist, or like there's nothing going on in Twitter Spaces, so I just start my own room, or let's go to a room on Clubhouse where I see some old friends. It's just like a water cooler where you talk to like a couple people. It's not very many people there these days, but it's fun for me to reconnect with people.
Nice. Cool. Yeah. Terrence, thanks for coming on. This was great.
Yeah, man.
Informative.
I appreciate it. Thank you for coming. I'm going to stop recording. Here we go. Thanks again for listening to the High Hash Rate podcast. You can find us on Twitter at High Hash Rate, or you can hit up Dan at Heartland Bitcoin, HRTLND Bitcoin, or myself, Mike, at Run Dance Bitcoin. That's all one word, Run Dance Bitcoin. If you're a fellow pleb or you just want to shoot the shit with two high Bitcoiners, reach out to us.
Holy Toledo!